Welcome to our Spring Women's Leadership Forum, titled Relaunching Your Career, Tools and Strategies for Women Returning to the Workforce. I'm Dr. Susan Madsen, Founding Director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, and also the Karen Haight Huntsman Endowed Professor of Leadership in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. And I'm the host and will be the panel moderator today. This event furthers the mission of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, which is to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women. And we serve Utah and its residents by first, producing relevant, trustworthy, and applicable research. Second, creating and gathering valuable resources. And third, convening trainings and events that inform, inspire, and ignite growth and change for all Utahns. And we want to thank our sponsors today, the Utah Education Network, UEN, the John M. Huntsman School of Business, and USU Extension for making this event possible. So I'm so excited for this event today. And we have 4 esteemed panelists here today. And what I'd like to do, actually, instead of doing the introductions for all 4 of you at the same time, I'm going to just read a quick bio for each of you. And after I read your bio, I'm going to ask you why you're so passionate about the topic of women relaunching their careers after being out of the workforce for a while. So then that'll break up the bios for everyone. So, Robbyn, I'm going to start with you. I think I've known Robbyn the longest. Robbyn Scribner is a women's labor force expert, consultant, and career coach. She's the co-founder and director of Outreach for Tech Moms, a workforce reentry program that helps women transition into the tech industry. Robbyn is also a regular keynote speaker and presenter focusing on women's professional development. She's a prolific researcher and writer on women's issues and has published more than 50 reports, articles, or snapshots on a wide variety of topics, including labor force participation, wage gap, male allies, workforce flexibility, and women's careers. So she was the assistant director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project for many years and still works as a research fellow. She holds bachelor's and master's degrees from Brigham Young University and is a Gallup certified strengths coach. Well, Robbyn, welcome to this panel today. I would love to hear about your passion, why you're so passionate about the topic of women relaunching your careers. I remember, Robbyn, when we first connected, I don't know how many years ago, that was one thing that you mentioned even clear back then. And so I'd love to hear your comments.
Thank you. And also, can I say, is there anything so awkward as just sitting there on screen while someone's reading your bio? You're like, okay. Anyway, it's great to have to be meeting with all of you here today. As Susan mentioned, we go way back, and I actually started working for her. I applied for the job working for her because I was so passionate about women's careers. My dad was a career expert, and so I've always been fascinated with careers, but especially careers for women, because our pathways are so varied and we have so many other responsibilities that careers for women look so different than careers for men. And so I started working with Susan, where I got the chance to learn about so many issues that affect women's lives, but always I had in the back of my mind this need for women to have better ways to engage with their own careers and their workforce development. And so a couple of years ago, I got together with my co-founders, Mikkel Blake and Trina Limpert, to launch Tech Moms, and we have been working ever since then to help women transition into new careers and find better ways to live their own worlds of work. And this topic is so passionate to me because as women, we're so multifaceted. We care about so many different things, but the ability to support ourselves and our families is absolutely fundamental and foundational to everything else that we do. And so I love to find better ways for women to work successfully and then also fulfill all their other roles. So I love to talk about this issue.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you and the state of Utah being so passionate about this and making things happen on various fronts. So I'd like to next introduce Kathryn Thomas. She's the executive director of People Helping People, a local grassroots nonprofit employment program that teaches women how to navigate barriers that hold them back from workplace success, how to increase their confidence, and how to reach self-sufficiency through successful employment. With more than 20 years of entrepreneurial experience, Kathryn understands firsthand the challenges faced by single mothers and working women. And she owned and operated Utah's first co-working shared workspace and was a recipient of the Holiday Chamber's Small Business of the Year Award, helped launch the WNP's or NG's Women's Entrepreneurial Conference, and also received the 2020 Seroptimist Ruby Award. Kathryn, welcome. I'd love to hear about why you're passionate about this topic as well.
Thank you so much, Susan. And I think everybody should start their day with someone reading their bio so that it reminds us of what we've accomplished and that we actually have some value if we're ever doubting that. So thank you so much for including me today. And Robbyn, I'm going to mimic a lot of the same things that you said. I feel so fortunate that my job, if you will, really allows me to have this conversation that we're going to have today on a daily basis. I'm absolutely passionate about women finding their superpowers, if you will. You know, I work with women every single day who have, excuse me, have lost that spark, or they've forgotten what they wanted to be when they grew up. Or worse yet, they are feeling like they're taking up space versus really owning their space. After my own experience of being a young single mother with 3 small kids and finding myself in a position where I needed to be the primary breadwinner, I can truly speak firsthand to you know, how healing and also how empowering it is for us to find a career and earn our own money to be self-sufficient. It increases our self-worth and our confidence and just a feeling of having purpose. And I truly believe that if we lift women, we're going to lift our community, right? This is very much a collective effort. So thank you for including me today.
Thanks so much. Next, I'd like to welcome Emelly Alvarado, Alvarado is head of contract recruiting at Connected Well, a talent advisory firm based out of Silicon Slopes. Emelly's passion for talent acquisition started 10 years ago when she shifted from a career in sales to recruiting. She's on a personal mission to help ensure there is proper representation at all levels of tech by really talking a lot and encouraging equity and inclusion within her own teams and clients. When she's not working or networking, she enjoys spoiling her dogs, exploring Utah's food and entertainment scene, and trying to learn something new. Welcome, Emelly. Would love to hear from you about your passion.
Thank you so much for including me. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, so as a recruiter, I have had the awesome opportunity to witness firsthand a woman or women entering the workforce after some time away, and the ways in which they've been able to contribute and didn't even know they could once they got in the door. I've had the chance to work with a number of startups. I've helped to scale some recruiting teams in the past, so that's what I get to do. And in seeing what startup opportunities came or are available here, it's just such a great place to be. And it gives me the opportunity to introduce more women into the space and advocate for them, be a resource, a career coach. Yeah, this is the way that I choose to be involved. And it's something I'm very passionate about, having witnessed it for my mother as well early on, and her choice to return to work. So yeah.
I love that. And I love your choice of word. We choose. We do choose to do what we do, right? We choose to be passionate about, some of it's not choice, it's just innate in us. It's just like, we love this and we love to help. So I love that all of us are here because we're choosing to be here. Thank you so much. Excited to hear your comments. And then last but not least, Sherrie Hall. Welcome, Sherrie. So Sherrie was born and raised in a small town in northern Utah. And while attending college, she struggled to find the right major. So she put her education on hold while she and her husband started a family. Many women do that here in the state of Utah. Last year, she enrolled with Tech Moms, where she learned she really has a place in the tech world, and that she has capabilities and capacities with visual design. So after working for Tech Moms as their social media manager, she was recently hired by a small tech company where she continues to expand her skills and increases her abilities in a relevant, growing, and fast-changing industry. So we love that you're joining us today. We really wanted someone who has gone through that relaunching experience. Most of us talk to women who are doing it, but you have just recently done that yourself. I would love to have your comments about why you're passionate about this topic as well.
Yeah, I'm super nervous. I'm kind of that person that just sticks to themselves, and I'm a crier, so I just like stay away from everyone. But
thank you for getting out of your comfort zone and joining us today.
yeah. Well, I'm passionate about this because I never knew that I had any skills to offer the tech industry. Like you mentioned, I really struggled finding where I belonged at college and what degree to go into. And so I kind of gave up. I was set to graduate when I was 20, and I did another year of school and just couldn't find my place. So anyway, so I have a friend that works for a tech startup, and she just really loves it. And she happens to work for Mikkel's husband, who's a co-founder of Tech Moms. And so she made a post on Instagram, and I was just kind of curious. And I saw her that night for dinner, and I asked her about it, and she gave me Mikkel's phone number, and she's like, just talk to Mikkel. And so after talking to Mikkel, I realized I wasn't that different than anyone else. Like I had been home for almost 13 years with kids and had no tech background, but she made me feel so like I fit in this mold of, well, not a mold. I guess everyone comes from different backgrounds, but that I would be able to find something for me. And it just sparked that little bit of interest. And my youngest was going to kindergarten last year and gonna be away. And I was like, what do I do with all my time? So I will go crazy. And so that's where the road started for me. So yeah, I did Tech Moms, and I work for a startup now. So yeah.
And what's so interesting, Kathryn alluded to this too, that she had experiences earlier in her life that shifted, that sometimes once you go through it yourself, then you think, let's reach back and help others, right? Let's reach not just back, but in any direction, right? And help others. Thank you so much. For those of you listening, you are welcome to put questions into the chat or the Q&A throughout the presentation today. And I'll bring them up, but our panelists will spot them as well. And we have a few different times we'll stop and just bring in questions. So please let us know what you're thinking and your questions, and we'll bring those in. So my first question, my second question, I've already given you my first question, but I would like this question, really, Robbyn and Kathryn, both of you, tell us more about your organizations and really how they help women, but specifically relaunchers, we're calling them. I think return to work, there's different words, but I'm a lover of the relaunchers. I just think that's a fun. I kind of picture us on trampolines sometimes. I'm going to relaunch, jump out there, have some energy. That sounds a little painful for my phase of life, though. Kathryn, let's have you start on that one. Yeah, just tell us more about people helping people and how you really help women who are relaunching.
So People Helping People is a local grassroots nonprofit that for almost 30 years now has been working with women in our community, helping them to build confidence and learn marketable skills, build their professional network, which is something I'm really passionate about, and then not only get a job, but find the job, keep the job, and then get ahead and create a career for themselves. At PHP, we've got a long-term approach to career success because we know that's not going to happen overnight. It's very much a process. My journey alone has been the better part of 30 years. But one aspect of our program that I especially appreciate is really helping women. And we have more and more women right now that are relaunching for a variety of reasons, thanks to COVID and so many other reasons. But one thing that I really appreciate is helping women shift their mindset, shift their belief, this internal belief system, their view of themselves, and seeing that they do in fact have marketable skills like Sherrie was just talking about, some of these daily activities, and Emelly too, as she's a recruiter and that recruiter perspective. But, more times than not, are the skills and these everyday activities that we're doing actually align with our passions. And there's several opportunities, especially right now. I mean, I say it over and over again. This is such an amazing time to reinvent, rebrand, relaunch, all the things, right? Just get back out into the workplace, because there are so many opportunities and such a variety there. And when we can start to put those moving pieces together, those everyday activities and how they transfer, it becomes a very powerful exercise. So
thank you so much. And I totally agree with you. This is the time to relaunch in so many ways, because there's so much of a talent shortage. I mean, I've been talking to CEOs who tell me one of the biggest, like, I won't say which organization, but it has like 4,000 openings right now. And then others, tech companies who have hundreds and hundreds. So sometimes when we relaunch as women, I've done it myself, we feel like people are doing us a favor to give us a job. I think we're shifting. And Emelly, you could probably speak to that when we get to you. Robbyn, I would love to hear more about tech moms.
Oh yeah, and Susan, I will just echo that 100%. I have companies reaching out to me every single day. How can we get your women to apply for our open position? So it is a fantastic time for us to be having this conversation. So we love working with people, helping people. They're a fantastic partner with us. Our focus is a little bit different, and we work together, and clients move back and forth between our programs. But we focus specifically on helping women transition into technology careers. And we have 2 parts to our curriculum. We're a 9-week program. 2 parts, we do teach basic front-end web development. So women who want to learn a little bit about coding, how to build a website, they learn that. But we also have an intense career exploration curriculum. So if you're not sure what you want to do, but you think there's a better career out there for you, we give you the opportunity to learn from women working in lots of different careers, so you can get a sense of what might be a right pathway for you. And then we build this long-term community of support for our women. So after they leave our program, we help them find next steps, training. A lot of them will need to go into additional training, but also we help them find jobs. And I work with Emelly. In fact, Emelly has hired one of my tech moms, and she loves her job. It's fantastic. And so we have all these great industry partners. So we're really committed to helping women who don't know that they have a place in tech. And it's, we talk about tech, but it really, it applies to every single industry, right? And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is about how to find your own path. But we help women recognize you do have the skills. We're going to help you find the networks, build the other things that you need to get back into your career and really support your families. So it's been a lot of fun. We've just been around for 2 years. Kathryn's been doing it for 30 years, not you individually, but people helping people. So we're a different level of organization, but we're super excited we've seen so many women's lives change, which is really just thrilling.
And we're just pleased to be partnering with Robbyn and Tech Moms to create, with Robbyn's curriculum, to create an online course. So it may take us 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get that out there, but we'll post, we have new curriculum now through USU Extension for community members and so forth. So that'll be something that Tech Moms will use for their folks, will use, and actually anybody else too. So excited about. Emelly, we'll go to you. So in your professional role, we're strategizing to make sure we had different perspectives. We wanted a couple of organizations, but you in recruiting and thinking about it, like I said, some women just feel like they're doing us companies a favor for even applying sometimes, when in reality, there's a huge need. Tell us more about what you do and what you're seeing in terms of women relaunching.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a number of different ways, roles, departments that women can jump right into tech with very little experience. Some of them are a little bit more obvious, like customer service and sales. Some of them are willing to train you from there. What happens often is you're already in the door, you're at the organization, and you raise your hand to do more, or you're tapped on the shoulder to do more, because we need something immediately, we need something fast, and we've got to get moving on it. So usually we look at our teams and ask, who can do this thing, who can get it off the floor and get it going. So it's been really awesome to be a recruiter who's had an opportunity to help individuals get into tech and see them grow that way. Depending on each individual woman's background and interests. If you're someone who's more creatively inclined, there are opportunities in design and social media, just like Sherrie did recently, where you can learn it right on the job, figure it out, and then amplify whatever it is that you're doing. If you've been someone who has had to deal with a lot of different things, projects or kids' needs, activities, and you've gotten really great at juggling, and you've gotten great at tracking things on sheets, or
I would say, Emelly, with that, it seems like, a lot of people spend a lot of time doing organizational roles within their churches or their congregations or their schools, like with PTA,
Totally.
and they don't think that that's translates often to the workplace. What would you say to that? If a woman came up and said, well, that's what we hear.
Right.
This is just or all that I've been doing. What would you say?
Yeah, echo everything you just said. It's absolutely false. Don't tell yourself that. There is so much that all of these ways that you've learned to be aware of things, like just awareness and proactivity, all those things you will definitely flex here on the job. So I definitely encourage, take note, take account of what you enjoy doing, what you've had the opportunity to do as a homemaker, and don't be afraid to reach out to individuals like myself, but most of all, keep or practice, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the term. Forgive me, it's almost coming. Growth mindset.
You got it.
Yes. You are going to be required to do a lot of learning. You can't expect to get into a role like this and then just be okay with sitting and simmering in that position. No, be ready to learn more. Make yourself uncomfortable by doing things that are new. And through that, the opportunities are limitless. Your skills are needed. Women are needed in these spaces. That's what I'm most passionate about. Let's get more women in here into these leadership roles, executive rooms, boards. And the opportunity is there. So don't wait. And believe in yourself.
I love it. Good advice. And just mentioning to those listening, I mean, tech is such a big industry in the state of Utah, and we're talking more about that right now. But Kathryn, I'm sure, and there's so many industries right now. In fact, Utah has we call it industry diversity. And so healthcare, I'll tell you, I've been working a lot with the healthcare leaders in the state of Utah, and there's thousands of openings in healthcare right now. What other industries are hot? Sherrie, I'm not forgetting you. We're coming to you next, but I want to. So when we look at even manufacturing, I mean, there's manufacturing. Robbyn, any other industries coming to mind?
Well, I was just going to say, I was on the Go Utah board meeting this morning, and they're talking about the industry growth. And Susan, I love what you just mentioned, because there are so many jobs that we don't typically think of as being appropriate for women. I have a cousin who got divorced at age 60. She hadn't had a career ever, and her son worked at a machine shop. And he said, come work with me. And she learned how to become a machinist. She's like, I know how to decorate houses. I don't know how to use a big industrial equipment. But she learned it so quickly. She was great at her job. There's so many things that women don't think about, but these jobs pay really well.
Yeah,
there's a huge demand, and you can get trained quickly. So keep an open mind about the many thousands, tens of thousands of different types of jobs that might be appropriate for you.
And even one thing that, if we haven't been in the workforce for a while, I'm just going to do this because I know that I'm just going to give a pitch that just getting out there a little bit, if we have the background to substitute teach, that might be like throwing us into the refiner's fire, but there's such a need right now for substitute teachers, just to get yourself out into a new space. So just wanted to put that out there. We can talk more about some other industries as well, but Sharon, I'd love to go to you. So you're a recent relauncher yourself. Tell us a little bit more about your story, and were you nervous about relaunching? Sometimes for women, when they're returning to college, I see the same thing when they're returning to college and the workforce. They're so kind of nervous. Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Anyway, I don't know if you had any of those experiences, but tell us more.
I still go through that like every day. I had a meeting with one of my coworkers yesterday, and I was like, he's 10 years younger than me, and he just outdid me. Like, and I said, Tyler, you going to take my job? And he's like, no. But it was just, he's younger, but I had so much self-doubt of, I have been out of the game for so long, who's going to want me, and I kind of just floated around for a few months after I finished Tech Moms and decided, okay, if I do not have a job by September 1st, I'm going back to school. If I do have a job, then I'll just see how that works out. So I started saying yes to everything that came my way. Like Mikkel posted about a social media manager, and I'm not big on social media, but I was like, yes. And I responded within seconds. I remember I was running on the treadmill and I stopped and I was like, I want it, just let me have anything. And so then it just kind of spiraled from there. But the biggest hurdle was the self-doubt of, I have been out of the game for so long. I feel like I'm so much older. When you think tech, you think of like these young 20-year-old people, like doing these tech jobs. And that was hard for me to get over, to be like, I just got hired by a guy that is like only a year older than me, and I have no experience, like this is kind of a little, it's intimidating. But the biggest barrier was just getting through that in my head to, I am good enough. I do have something to offer them. When I had started, before I started college, I worked for a dentist, and I worked for a real estate agent, and I did retail. Like I had 3 jobs at once at one point, just anything. And
But you've got to remember those times sometimes that I've done this. I've learned.
I've done this. I hated working at Buckle, but I learned from it. I am not good at sales, but when I worked for the dentist, I was kind of thinking I would go into dental hygiene, and then I realized, ooh, I don't like the human mouth once they're over a certain age. Like that's not for me. So when I worked for them, they made me their OSHA compliance manager, and I was 20, like what do I know about OSHA compliance, and I did it for a few months, and then I got a job at a different company full-time that I did franchise compliance, and it was the most boring paperwork fill out,
but you did it, and
I did it. I really liked, my whole department was women, and it was fun, but I did it, and I worked there for a few years, and it was a good job for me at the time.
So quick question, Sherrie, quick question though. When you jumped into, and I would say probably the same thing for Kathryn, then the Tech Moms, just taking that step to become part of a cohort and learn some of those things probably upped your confidence right there. And then you kind of maybe have a confidence drop when you're applying for jobs or have that level. But I'm sure that being involved in a program like People Helping People or Tech Moms gives all the women kind of this confidence and knowledge. I'm sure you felt that. You're nodding.
Yeah. Yeah. When I started Tech Moms, it was kind of a roller coaster. Like from one week, I'm like, I get this concept. And then I'd go home, and then I'd come back on Saturday and feel a little more confident. And then I'd go home and kind of feel like a lull during the week. But having that in-class connection with other women and Robbyn and Mikkel and Trina, and then the addition of women coming in and speaking to us every week that were in the tech field, it was like a roller coaster, but it was like a slow incline to like, I can do this. By the time you graduate, I think the hardest thing about finishing the cohort was knowing you're not going to come every Saturday and be with these friends that you just
probably are kind of tight with that group when
you do. You kind of form a bond, and now like we have a Slack channel, and I'm always like, who was from my cohort? Like, where's my friends? But it was like just that slow building of confidence, and then Tech Moms, they really launched my confidence by even just letting me manage their social media. It was just that little few hours a day that really boosted my confidence.
I love that. I love that. And Kathryn, just real quick, I'm sure in your program, the same thing happens. Don't you do cohorts as well?
Not so much cohorts, but we have women that will start the program at the same time.
Yes.
And we'll continue, and advance alongside one another. And back to what Sherrie was talking about, and just this whole topic of community, of people helping people. And generally speaking, if you get involved with a networking group, I think it's really valuable to be around other women that are going through the same situation, the same circumstances. Many times the things that we are going through, as real as they feel to us, chances are they're not unique to us, right? And so to have that accountability, that support system, learn from other people, how did you do things differently, is a really important part of the process as we're advancing.
I love that. And we do at the Utah Women in Leadership Project, utwomen.org, under one of our toolkits, if you look under resources, we have some resources under relaunchers. We actually have a thing, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it links to Kathryn's group and Robbyn and a few others as well that really help. I know the Junior League of Salt Lake and they're all different. All the groups are really different. I also want to highlight real quick, the state government returnship program. And I'm working with a lot of business leaders right now who are doing pilot tests on relaunching as well. So even just for their company, for instance, I've been working with the CEO of Overstock.com. And they're looking at how to do relaunching, bringing people in and actually doing training at the company and so forth like that. So there's some great opportunities out there, and will be more and more, don't you think? I think more and more. So I'm going to shift. Emelly, I'm going to start with you on this question. Shift into a question. And then after this question, we're going to go through this question pretty quick. And then I want to start hitting, oh my gosh, I have like 25 chats and 5 Q&A. So
all the questions in the chat. I love to respond to chat.
Okay, let me ask you one question, but let's just have some quick comments on this one, and then we'll go to chat, because I think some of the things in chat probably relate to this question. And Robbyn, if you see things that relate, or anyone else, to this question from the chat, let's bring it in and talk about it right now. But my question is, what are the biggest, and you've talked about these already, Sherrie mentioned some, what are the biggest challenges you see for women who are relaunching? Emelly, let's start with you on this. Just list a few of the challenges you see that are kind of the ones you'd say are in the top of your list.
Yeah, I think the first, and we've heard it from a few different people, is self-doubt.
Yep.
Thinking like you're not enough. That's just simply not true. And anything can be learned. There's so many awesome resources out there, and we can get into that in a little bit. Some other challenges is lack of communication. Communicate with your peers and your leadership, and make sure that you speak the things that are important to you about how this team works together, and how, you want to grow, and the ways that, you see this thing could be better by you being there. So don't be shy, communicate, share your thoughts, your ideas.
And one of the things that I did, I haven't opened the chat, but I've seen a few things come through, is it can be really intimidating to even update your Vita or your resume sometimes, right? And I've known women that have just they've been sat on that for like a year because they're so intimidated by that. So let's go to, yeah,
Susan,
Robbyn.
can I just reference one of the comments in the chat? One woman said that she updates her resume every single year, regardless of whether or not she's looking for a job, so it doesn't become such a huge barrier. And one thing that I used to teach was for women who are not working, don't feel like you have a resume, to keep a running resume of your PTA, of your church service, of your volunteering, all those other things, because you'll find later that so many of those skills are so relevant and needed, and to have them there. So just have a document that's just like you know how we teach our teenagers to have a brag list? As adult women, we should have a brag list, keeping track of our accomplishments, our skills, everything we're doing. That way, when we go back to do our resume, it's not nearly as daunting or scary.
I love that. And also sometimes I've had people tell me that when they get compliments, they actually cut and paste them into a document. And then they read, oh, Emily's doing a thumbs up on that. Then they sometimes read those when they need to feel more confident, or say, I'm going to take this risk or get out of the comfort zone. I love that. Kathryn and Sherrie, any comments from you both about some of the challenges? Kathryn.
Yeah, I mean, I'll mimic that same thing about being worried about a lapse in work history and how you build around that. And I think we've had some creative conversation around how to do that, and can continue to expand on that. But some of the other things that I hear most frequently are women that get really held up on what they are not or what they can't do. It's really interesting when you watch how men and women approach job searching and applying for jobs, right? A woman will look at a job, and I know Emelly can probably speak to this as well, but a woman, has a tendency to look at a job and we'll see the 25 things that job's asking of us, right? The 25 skills and requirements. And we get hyper-focused on the 2 or 3 that we can't do, and then we don't apply for the job. Well, men on the flip side, they'll look through that same list of 25 things. They'll find one thing they think they can kind of do, and then they'll apply for the job, right? So there's really something that can be learned by what I think is more than anything an unconscious confidence that these men have. But there's really something that we can learn from that, and to really focus on those things that we can do. I love the idea of keeping a journal and writing down those daily activities, because we talk about that in one of our very first coaching sessions at PHP. Let's list all the things that you do every single day, and then what skills you need in order to do those. Some things that are as simple as picking up the phone and making a doctor's appointment, or getting online and looking up an address, or helping out your kids' school, right? These are amazing transferable skills that an employer would find valuable. The other thing that I want to quickly say, because there's also a lot of buzz around this right now, is we have to somewhat reverse engineer this in a way. And at the very core, we have to figure out why, right? We hear a lot about that right now. Why is it that I need to work? Why is it that I got out of bed today? Why is it that I want to make money? What is that money going to do? And hopefully we get really specific in that. But if we don't truly understand why it is that we need to go to work, or what it is, that's going to do, and how it's going to change our lives, then we're going to get a little bit wonky and totally off track, right? And just grasp at anything that's out there. So I think that's a really good starting point is, okay, why? Why is it that I need to go to work? And then hopefully that's your driving force, so that on those days that you don't want to do something, right, you remember that, oh yeah, I'm the only one that's putting food on the table today, or I've got a mortgage to pay, or I need to save for retirement, or whatever that is, right?
I like that, to keep that why fresh in your mind. Sherrie, you talked already about some of your challenges, and you can comment for a minute about that, but also I'm sure in your cohort, you saw the other people's challenges as well. Can you just talk maybe about a couple of other challenges we haven't addressed?
Yeah, so my challenges was, I already talked about those. I saw other women there were a few women in our cohort that were getting divorced, and I just kind of I looked at them with such respect and admiration, because they've been thrown this really hard challenge, like that would be impossible, I would feel like, for me, and they're like, I got to make a change, I'm going to make a change, and they've done it. They just worked their little tails off through that cohort, or they were already working and being a full-time mom and being a full-time employer or employee, and then doing tech moms on top of it. And I just looked at those women like they are some of the strongest women. And I think being surrounded by other strong women helps lift you up too. Even if you don't feel like, like I know women always play the comparison game, but to be around other strong women, so surround yourself with strong women, find a mentor that can lift you up. A mentor will help you immensely, even if it's someone that you didn't talk to twice, like during your cohort. Or I talked to one girl like maybe 2 times, I think, during my cohort, and she's my mentor now. I messaged her yesterday with a question. Just surround yourself with those people that will support you.
Thank you so much for that. So now I'm not going to have everybody answer every question.
Susan, can I hop on the challenges really fast? I just want to give a sneak peek into this curriculum that we're building out. And I've identified 5 challenges, and some of these are just perceived and others are real. But the good news, it can feel kind of daunting, but identifying the actual challenges and then speaking to them directly can help you overcome this feeling of just like existential dread. Like so many women are like, I know I need to do this, I have no idea how, but breaking it down into pieces can really help us. So the 5 challenges I identified are: first, the feeling of lack of direction. So many women don't know what they want to do. There are tools and resources to help you make that decision. The next is lack of preparation. So we talked about building a resume, other things like that. Those are actionable steps that you can take to move forward. The third is lack of skills. And actually, that's one of the things that women feel the very, very most, but I think it's one of the easiest ones to remedy. And then the fourth one is lack of networks. And I will say this in the chat and in the questions 100 times. The answer to almost every career challenge you are facing is networking and building professional relationships. It's more important than anything else. We could do 20 hours talking about that, but that is one that so many women who've been home for 10, 15 years completely lack, but knowing they can move forward in that area makes all the difference. And you can learn how to do that as well. And then the fifth one is lack of confidence. And if you work on those other 4 things, you're like, I got confidence now, I can do this.
That's true.
And so just look forward. We're going to build out this curriculum, and we have answers and resources for all these issues, but just understanding and identifying for yourself, well, is the main thing that's giving me that feeling of existential dread just my lack of preparation? Well, I just need to get steps and get prepared, and then I can move forward. And knowing what your own personal challenge is going to help you get moving.
Thank you. Such a good list of 5. I love that. So I'm going to have us move to questions now. I'm looking at the time. We're already moving through our time, but we want to, after we get done with some questions, go into some tools and tips, and we've already been there. But one of the questions in the Q&A I want to respond to just quickly, someone that is thinking about leaving the workforce for a while, nervous about taking some time off. One of the things I do, Robbyn's going to smile because I talk about this all the time, is that we really have a strong either or mentality in the state of Utah, that it's all working full time. And then when I have a baby, I'm full time at home or whatever. Today there's ways to keep our resumes going. There's part-time, companies are more and more open to part-time. But there's also professional roles. I know when I had 4 kids and they were all little, I did some part-time work, but I also served on a board for the city I was in, and I served on the board for a YWC or a YMCA. And those things are part of my career. I didn't get paid for those, but they're my career. They helped me learn how to navigate, use my voice in community settings. And so for me, even though I wasn't being paid, that still is part of my career. So I just would throw that out we can have career breaks. And even those of you that are thinking about relaunching, you can relaunch in different ways. Part-time, full-time, community service, everything counts, I think. Don't you think? Robbyn, you agree with me, right? Okay. All right. What questions are you seeing, you 4 panelists, that you would like to jump in and respond to? Again, we won't have all 4 of you respond to everyone. Let's get through as many questions as we can. Who wants to jump in?
I saw a question about education, like being worried because they didn't have a degree. And from my experience, I'm in the same boat. I had a semester left and I stopped, and I felt really discouraged by that. I think going into one of these programs and exploring what these other jobs are will either do one of two things. You'll either feel like confident enough to apply for a job, or you'll be interested enough that you want to learn more about that field, and that will launch you down another education pathway. Or you can learn this job and grow on this job on the fly with, learning through the experience. So I don't think not having a degree should hold you back, because I think either way you'll get more educated in either a formal education or through your experience working. So
thank you. I appreciate that. I will give my pitch though, that the research is so clear. I think Sherrie makes a great point that we can move forward. We don't have to do all education first and then go into a career. We can launch, we can get a certificate at a technical college. We can go through a program, and we can also, when we're done with that, start even part-time and associates, or get back and finish our bachelor's. What we know is that even formal degrees are critically important in the lifespan of a career, and they're very much linked. They continue to be linked with your pay. And as you know, they're very much linked to increasing and pushing our brains and critical thinking and so forth. But it's not silos, right? So thank you. I appreciate that. Who else wants to jump in?
Can I add to that a little bit? One of the requirements at PHP for our employer partners is that they offer tuition reimbursement, because education is so important, right? But what I want to say to that is, before we find ourselves going down a rabbit hole, because I hear this every day, well, I haven't been working for a number of months or years, and so I need to learn QuickBooks. I need to learn some software. I need to go back to school. And that might very well be the case. But what is the job that you're interested in? And is that job going to require that skill? And let's make sure that we're matching those two things up, right? So that we don't spend all of this time, which sometimes is an excuse in a lot of ways to prevent us from doing that next thing or getting us out of our comfort zone. So I think we've also got to be really careful about, why is it that we're hyper focusing on that? And what is it that we really want to do? What are the jobs that we're interested in? And then find somebody doing that job, which is why the networking is so important. But find somebody already in that position that you might be able to reach out to and say, okay, tell me what your workday looks like. What skills are you having to use every day? And then go from there.
I love that. One quick thing I will add is that I just had a conversation a couple of days ago with a woman who is in some education with something that I wonder if she's really gifted or has talents in that area. I'm just saying, one of the first steps is to figure out what you're naturally gifted at and your talents, and then combine those. So Emelly, have you found a question that you would like to jump in and respond to?
Yeah, I saw a couple of questions about LinkedIn. So if nothing else, it's an amazing learning tool, incredible resource, tons of free things on there on how to build a resume, how to interview, how to prepare. Setting up an account is fairly easy if you just want to list your previous role, titles, time, later come back and add more to it. There's also a new feature on there. Once you've got your profile built out, you can build a resume from it. There's just a little section there, click more, build resume from profile, and it'll get you started. So it's free, definitely. Jump in, use it, play around in there. And I also saw a question about in the interview, is it cringy to talk about your experience related to being a mom in the interview? Not at all. Certainly be prepared to share it in a way that, is strategic and really share your problem solving abilities that came along in that. So you got to be detailed. You can't just say something, you've got to give substance into it, but absolutely, no, go for it.
I love that. And I mentioned this if any of you joined us for our last event on salary negotiation, which was awesome. Great information there. But I'll tell you about the same study. So there's a new study that was was published last year. I actually think it was at a big conference that talked about women relaunching. And then these researchers, very good study, looked at resumes and looked at how resumes were crafted. And what they actually found is a lot of women are really nervous about the gaps, right? So what did I do between this gap, about 10 years for Sherrie's experience, 13 years or whatever. But the resumes that actually did the best are the ones that you didn't even put years on. You said, I have 3 years of experience doing this. I have 3 years, like Sherrie, compliance. You didn't do that for very long, so I'm not sure you had a whole year, but 6 months or whatever. They actually, for men even, and different things, did better than the dates. I just wanted to put that out there so you knew. Robbyn, do you have another question you'd like to jump in?
Yes, I want to jump into all of these. There's so many, but we don't have time. So I want to address Kendra's question that she put in the QA, which is, first of all, how do we get over the idea that we're, as women, we're not allowed to invest in ourselves? And then she asked a follow-up question, how do you deal with mom guilt? And so I want to address those together. First of all, regardless of all the other things I'm going to say in a minute, every woman is an individual human being who has every right to every good thing. Right? So regardless of all the other stuff I'm going to say about why it's so important to invest in yourself, because you are a human being, you have the right to invest in yourself. So just internalize that and think about that for a minute. But in addition to that, as women invest in ourselves, we invest in our families. We invest, if we're married, we invest in our partners. We invest in our communities, our neighborhoods. Like everything that women do, I don't know why we do it. We're probably trained this way, but maybe it's inherent too. Like everything that we do benefits everybody else. So I coach women all the time, and they talk about their mom guilt, and they say, it's hard for me to tell my kid, I don't have time for you right now. I've got to finish this class, or I have to do my work. I love this image of women juggling balls, and some of the balls that you've got are made of china, and some of them are made of rubber. And which one are made of china and which one are made of rubber changes all the time, right? One day it might be your kid that's made of china, and one day it might be the report that you've got to do at work that's made of china, and you have to decide, what is the thing I can't let drop today? But just know that the investments that you're making in yourself, those will benefit you, but they're going to benefit everybody else that you're in there. So when you've got that mom guilt, just know that you're doing this for your kids. You're doing this for your family, and that's going to help you deal with some of that. Hopefully, it's not easy.
Robbyn, I have to quickly, I was going to say, I have to quickly jump into this because mom guilt could be my bumper sticker. I feel like my entire career, and even now, I mean, I've got a little 9-year-old, and there's still days I drop him off at school and I'm just crying, and I'm on my way to the office, and all this mom guilt, right? However, the mom guilt's really quickly countered with, okay, hold on, I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got to put food on the table, this is part of my why. One thing that I have found to be really, really helpful, and I did this a lot as a young single mom, I had 3 little kids, a lot of moving parts. I included them in the process. And so we would sit down together and I would let them know, this is why mom missed the soccer game. This is why mom can't do X, Y, and Z. And this is what we're all doing together so that we can go to Disneyland or we can do whatever it is, right? So I very much included my kids in the process. Hopefully I was good at it, but that's yet to be seen. But, I know that helped me too, because then it was a collective effort.
I wanted to mention that through the years, I have had so many women say to me, the reason I didn't go back and finish my bachelor's degree, or the reason is because it would be selfish. I want you to think about that. I mean, there is no selfishness in that. You get your education for the work that you're doing with your family, for your kids, for your, Robbyn, you alluded to that kind of, we do this. It's sometimes our mindset, right? And I have to say, I challenge myself on that. It is our mindset, but then you have to deal with the mindset of your spouse or your mother or, those people around that push that right back on you, right? So where do we want to go next? Who's seeing a great question? And Sherrie, you haven't commented for a minute. Do you see anything you would like to, or someone else can jump in? Robbyn will always jump in. I know. No, you have such great stuff. Everybody does. So Yeah, check. Let's make, actually, I'm looking at the time. Let's go to a question that I have, and then we'll see if we have a few more to chat about, or a little bit more time. So, the people joining today, I'm sure there's women that listening in that are really considering relaunching. And so what would be a couple for each of you, maybe they're different, maybe they're the same. What are a couple of first steps that you would recommend if they haven't done anything yet, right? We've talked about resumes, what do you say first? So, Robbyn, let's let you start. You're like, have this memorized, because I'm sure you say this.
I do. So I'm a broken record, as I said, on all issues relating to women's professional success. So what I would do is I would start talking to people about what you're thinking about. And it doesn't need to be like, well, I need to go find a high-powered executive who's working in this area. Don't be scared to just say, I'm thinking about going back to work. What do you do? When you're at the sidelines of the soccer game, when you're at church, when you're talking to your relatives at a family party. Every single person in your life has a career or knows somebody who has a career. And you will learn so much by having the simple conversations. What do you do? What do you think I should do? What do you think I'm good at? There's so many ways that we can phrase these conversations. And you will start, Emelly mentioned LinkedIn. If in many, many fields, LinkedIn is absolutely essential for you moving forward into a real career. There are some fields where it's not as important, but many fields it's very important. So I highly recommend it. So you will want to have a LinkedIn and start building your professional presence. But even before you're doing that, just start talking to people, learn what they do. I have a friend who went back to work printing t-shirts, and she does it super part-time, super flexible. In a million years, she never thought she'd do that job, but she found out she needed some money and she had a friend who needed someone to do some work. If that's the situation that you're in, start telling people about it.
I love that. That's good. You've mentioned two things there. Let's have everybody mention. Emelly, go for it. What are the two steps you would have people take?
I think it was mentioned on the chat, research, just start opening up books, magazines, groups, maybe identify a leader that you admire, and just start filling your head with just all the different things that are out there, and see what that might inspire. Yeah, that research part is a big part of it.
Thank you.
Spend some time there.
Thank you. Sherrie, what would you suggest? You're recent at this. What would be like two things you would suggest to people starting?
It's the same as Robbyn, like just talk to people and be like, hey, I'm interested in doing this, or I'm interested in going back to work. What do you do? I know you work from home, like my neighbor works from home, and I asked her a million times. And then I think that I would approach it. This is how I approached it. I'm going back to work because I want to go to work. And I know that's not the case with every woman. Sometimes they have to work, but I think having that mindset of I want to do something helped me find something that I enjoy doing. And now I get paid for it. So I feel like having that mindset of finding something you want to do, and find a job that fulfills that need. I think you'll feel more fulfilled in your work.
And I love that you brought up, Sherrie, so you're in a different situation than a lot of people. Some of us get to choose. Some of us can choose to stay home. There's so many women that don't have that choice. The one that you were mentioning that's going through a divorce, I mean, you need to be there soon, right?
Yeah.
Kathryn, what are a couple of your recommendations?
Just like everyone else said, I mean, it really does start with talking to everyone around you, just starting to plant that seed. I put it in the chat. Just own the fact that you're in the place that you are and that you're relaunching. You just never know who's listening, who might be within earshot that has an opportunity for you. And start doing something, whatever that is, because we also talk a lot about identifying our likes and our dislikes. And I know for me, there's a reason I had my kids do a lot of different kinds of sports, right? Eventually, one thing really stood out, something they really gravitated towards. But if they didn't do all those things that they didn't like, we would have never known that. And we've got to do the same thing as women, just kind of get our hands in some different pots so that we understand what we really like, and just as importantly, what we don't like doing, so that we don't find ourselves in a work environment that we're not excited about. that's all any of us can hope for, is to find something we love doing, hopefully most of the time. The other thing that I would kind of add to that, and I think I saw some of this in the chat, and we've alluded a little bit as a panel to this, but if you're waiting right now for that call back for an interview, or you're not quite sure what that dream job looks like, get out and volunteer. I know that probably sounds easier said than done, but get out and volunteer. Find an organization you're really passionate about. I can promise you they need the help right now. All of us in the nonprofit world need the help right now. And you know, it allows for a soft entry back into the workplace. Many times volunteering doesn't come with strings attached, right? It allows us to try new things, figure out our likes and dislikes, get used to putting pants back on and talking to adults, getting back out into the community. And some of my very best employees have come from volunteers. So again, you just never know who's listening, and it's a way to fill in a gap and start building on that resume too.
Thank you. A few of you on the panel, but I've seen some comments as well, have mentioned how important it is to network, right? And part of that comes from LinkedIn. But I've seen some folks that are like, how do we start networking? I'm going to give one, and then a couple of you can jump in. But one of the things I would mention is on the UWLP website, utwomen.org, we actually have, under the resource tab, we have about 160 women's groups and organizations. A number of these are women in business, but we have trade, you know, women lawyers or women in the trades, or and then political groups. There's all kinds of groups. Many of them have lunches. Many of them, for my students, I'm like, they love it when students show up at these things. And even the business, if you're not in a business now, I mean, for most people can show up at a luncheon. It is hard. Someone mentioned an extrovert, or they're an introvert, right? It is hard, and you have to have a strategy to say, I'm going to go a little early and talk to 3 people, and give yourself a pat on the back if you talk to, yeah, Robbyn.
I just want to add to that, Susan, and this has changed a lot because of the pandemic, but things are starting to come back. I used to tell people at the beginning of 2020, if you had an email address, you could eat 3 free meals a day by going to networking events. Silicon Slopes, all these organizations, they'd have a free breakfast, they'd have a free lunch all the time. If you just had an email address and you were willing to put on decent clothes and show up this event, you could go to a million free networking events. Now, most of us don't have time to do that, but there are a lot of these organizations. And you know, we've been talking about joining these professional organizations. There is no better way to start your networking. And everybody there wants to help you. That's one of the things that we find so much with our tech moms, is that there is a huge appetite, first of all, for workers, but also to help people who haven't previously had a chance. And so you will find people so willing to help you out.
I love that. Yeah, any other comments from the other 3 panelists on the networking topic? No pressure, or are you looking at another question you want to jump in?
I was just going to quickly say and put it in the chat with these networking events. You guys, everyone shows up alone. Everyone shows up alone. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to something because I can't get someone to go with me, everyone else that shows up to that event did the exact same conversation with themselves. So, you know, it is a place to come together, and with like-minded, amazing women. And like Robbyn said, they're there to support us. And it's truly how I've built my network, or how I've built my career, is through a network. The job I have today is because of a networking event. So
I love that. And you know, someone like a year or 2 ago that was in Sherrie's position, that if they just showed up at an event that I was at and mentioned that, say, hey, I'm just, this is my first event, I'm thinking about coming back. I mean, maybe not everybody has this experience, but most of us love to have people there that are just starting down the path. What other questions are you seeing in the chat that you would like to address? There's so many chats, and I have not been able to get through them.
Susan, I wanted to, are you going to talk about resources at the very end? Because
Yes,
there are questions about that. Okay.
We're going to shift to that right now, but I did say something. What was the name of the acronym Susan mentioned for networking? I'm not sure which acronym I used.
It might be the UWLP. You mentioned
maybe that's
website.
Utah Women in Leadership Project. And then if you go to our resource tab, there's going to be women's groups. So there's 160, and we're talking in whether you're in Moab or Logan or whatever, we have everything on there. And now we track all of those. So those are some of the best things. But I do agree, Robbyn, the Silicon Slopes and some of the other more broad conference, if you're in the Wasatch Front, the Salt Lake Chamber, and pretty much all the chambers, there's lots and lots of chambers in the state. They have lunches. I've spoken at lots of them, so we know they do. Let us shift into the resources, because you're saying many of the chat are asking about the resources or mentioning. So we've already talked about the two organizations mainly. So we know that they have a resource, but what other resources would you recommend? Let's start with Emelly, you want to jump in? I'll start with you again. What resources would you recommend to women who are relaunching?
Oh my goodness. I think like so many of the great ones have been already brought up. The meetups is a great one. I think some of the learning platforms that are out there that you can register for free or trial for free. You don't have to physically go somewhere if you can't. You can learn from home at your own pace. Yeah, that's what's coming to mind right now.
I love that. So on our website, I'll just throw out a few resources. We do have videos like this, all of our events. We have podcasts that talk about some of our resources and events. And we are launching new curriculum. We have a new curriculum course that you can go in. It's just $10. It's 3 hours. And learn more. And this one may not be as applicable to this, but it's understanding gender. And raising kids and understanding why things are the way they are in workplaces. We also have one that's going to come out in the next couple of months on imposter syndrome. Don't you think? And we're calling it imposter syndrome or phenomenon. Don't you think that relates to no matter what field or what you're doing or anything? And then the course that we talked about with Robbyn. And we are also working on a course for teenagers on why they should go to college and graduate and lead, and one for women who are thinking about returning to college. So those, we've got other resources as well. Kathryn, what are you thinking of in terms of additional resources?
Well, I'm watching Robbyn's chat. I think she's summing it up for all
Keep
of
going.
them. It's been a phenomenal job.
Crazy over there.
Like, I'm trying to insert something here, and Robbyn's 8 steps ahead of it. I love it. I did put a link in the chat quite a while back. There was some question about, well, I don't know what I want to do, and what would my next move be? Well, there's actually a website called mynextmove.org. And it's a really quick assessment. If any of you have done like a personality test or the Briggs-Myers, those kinds of things, very similar, but it's career focused. And so it takes your skills, your education, your likes, your dislikes, your value system. It's a really cool exercise. And then it funnels it into industries that might be a good fit for you. And then you can do some job prospecting from that point. So I love that resource. I'll put it in the chat again.
And you mentioned, I don't think you mentioned this, but in my mind, I've been a Gallup strengths coach for lots of years, and there's so much depth below even just reading the book and taking that assessment. However, I would recommend that just taking that and understanding how your brain works and the kinds of strengths you naturally have, and sign up for a course that does that as well. So yeah, Robbyn. And
Okay.
Sherrie, I'm coming to you next.
Okay, so I put a bunch of notes in the chat. Susan, you have a whole toolkit on your website specifically for relaunchers. We have tons of national organizations in there. There are you can get newsletters all day, every day that we can help you relaunch your career. They're very, very valuable. There are free webinars and all these other things from many of these organizations. But there is like once, hopefully, in a century opportunity right now because of the pandemic, and we hope that it will be over soon and all that garbage. But the state of Utah is offering through a program called Learn and Work, which if you Google Learn and Work in Utah, there are so many courses that are free for people who are underemployed or unemployed who want to pivot into new careers. This has been going on for 1.5 years. Some of these courses are finished up and expired, but they are about to start a new round that will start in the next couple of months. So if you go to Learn and Work in Utah, you can see courses in every industry, every field. They're being offered by every institution in the state, and these programs are all for free because they want people to get trained into new skills and go back to work. So, I mean, there's never been a better time to learn a new skill and get access to new training here in the state.
And one of the things I was really interested in is there's a site or a couple of sites that actually, you know, there's technology colleges and different things that you can look at really, you know, specific. There's a list of what like certificates you could go into that you would not have to pay a penny for because there's such a need in the state. I can't remember. Is that on that same website? I found it. Oh, Kathryn's nodding. Yes. Okay, I'm looking at the time. We're running out of time. Sherrie, I'm going to pivot over to you. All four of you, just very quickly, what would be your final advice as we come around and finish up? Sherrie, what final advice would you give to people listening today?
Just get out of your head, get out of that negative mindset, because you can do it. Anyone can do it. It doesn't matter your age or your background. Like, anyone can do it. You just find a mentor. There's so many good resources they just dropped in the chat that just start. You just have to pick up your foot and start somewhere. So get out of your head. You can do it.
And don't worry if you're missing some of the chat, because what we'll do is we'll be grabbing all the Q&A and the chat. And then Kylie on my team at the Utah Women in Leadership Project, we will be, if you are SVP for this event, you will be getting an email in 2 or 3 days with the link to this, so you can share it, but also some of all these resources that are mentioned. Kathryn, what's your last piece of advice?
What is the worst thing that can happen, right? The worst thing that can happen is a no. And so what we have to do is get the no's faster so that the yeses come. And sometimes it takes 100 no's before we get that one yes. But it's trusting the process. And if the worst thing that can happen is a no, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Emelly, let's pivot over to you.
I think someone brought up the why. I think that's so powerful. Your family, the communities that you can influence, the people that can observe what you're doing and think to themselves, I can do that someday, especially for our BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color. Like, they need even more the examples of people doing this. So yeah, powerful why, or identify your why, and know that it's not just for you. There are others next to you and behind you who will see your journey and be inspired by it.
I love that. And Robbyn.
First of all, I want to invite everybody on this call to connect with all of us on LinkedIn. If you're just getting started with that, these are your first 5 connections right here on this call. These are 5 perfect connections for you to start with. What I want to say is that I talk to so many women who say, I don't know exactly what I want to do for my career. And I remind them, it doesn't matter. Your career is going to change 6 times. Even if you're starting when you're 50, you're going to have 5 different jobs, and that's okay. But you can't start with anything until you start doing something. So taking action is the only way you're going to find out what you really want to do and what your pathway is. So I want to echo, this is, everybody said this, just start somewhere, start right now. Don't be afraid. Everybody's afraid, and you can do it.
Thank you so much to all of you. What great pieces of advice. For everyone, thank you to our sponsors again, the Utah Education Network, UEN, the John M. Huntsman School of Business, USU Extension for making this event possible. A special thanks to our 4 panelists today. Thanks for joining us.